Yo-ho, gamers. It is I, Defoe, and today I would like to share with you a borderline religious experience I recently had. Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 is a third-person squad-based action co-op game whose utter insanity in its moment-to-moment gameplay is matched only by its lore. You are a Helldiver, an elite soldier of the Federation of Super Earth, charged with bringing freedom to Xenos and dissidents across the galaxy. How does one go about providing this freedom? Genocide. Providing them freedom from continued existence. But this is easier said than done, you see, for the enemies of mankind are numerous and belligerent. Just know you'll have absolutely no problem smearing their blood across your armor before long. Hell, you'll be doing it with a smile ear to ear and a raging hard-on. Helldivers 2 is big, it's dumb, it's beautiful, and despite some issues, is extremely fun, and I can't wait to talk to you all about it. It is the year 2184. Super Earth, our home, a beacon of liberty, prosperity, and democracy, is under threat, and freedom needs defenders. It needs you, a Helldiver. As a Helldiver, you travel the galaxy, see the sights, meet the locals, defend your way of life, all for your right to vote and fuck. How does voting work in this most enlightened of futures? Managed democracy. When you go to the polls, you're asked a series of questions, and depending on your answers, the voting software votes for a candidate on your behalf, just so there's no misunderstandings. This is a future in where, after being asked what your favorite color is, ChatGPT votes for Stalin. Sounds perfectly democratic and reasonable, and not at all abusable if, for instance, theoretically of course, the democracy we fought in the trenches for was in fact a tyrannical dictatorship. But we don't need to worry about that, do we? We fight to bring freedom to the freedomless. We don't have time to criticize the government. That would be a thought crime, punishable by arrest or death, and we don't want that. I'm gonna keep it a buck with you all, lads. If you came to Helldivers 2 with the expectation of a deep and involved narrative, you're gonna be disappointed. All you need to know is there's a war on, a galactic war. It has two fronts, one against bugs and the other against the Reds. There are planets that need liberating or defending, and that every single sumbitch you see that doesn't look like one of these fellas right here is open season. Helldivers 2 is the result of an ungodly orgy between Starship Troopers, Warhammer 40,000, Halo and Terminator. It's wonderful, it's stupid, and I'm all here for it. The Galactic War is not just part of the setting, but rather a central mechanic which the entire game is built around. And the way this works is awesome. The community is given a focus to work towards and a certain time frame to achieve it, requiring you to fully secure a front. In order to do this, you have to liberate or protect planets within that front. Planets are made up of operations, and each operation is made up of individual missions, which, if completed, contributes to the completion of that operation, with every operation completed by the community adding a minuscule amount to the overall war effort on both the planet and the front itself, with how much progress added depending on how many objectives and side objectives you completed in the sector, with more of both being added as the difficulty goes up. If you manage to secure the front within that time frame, you get a fat stack. If not, the community might end up on the receiving end of a counterattack, with the outcome of every single front affecting the game's evolving narrative going into the future. If there's one thing that I have to impress upon you during this review, it's that Helldivers 2 nails scale and spectacle, and it starts right here on the map screen. You don't see your fellow Helldivers beyond you and the lads, but there could be tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people on a front, and each one of those people in squads, just like your own, are only tiny cogs in the wheel of the war effort, and have a basically non-existent impact on the progress of the front by themselves. But with all of you working together, slowly but surely you make progress, or get pushed back. I mean, do I even have to say how fucking cool this is? It's probably one of the most creative and interesting systems I've personally seen for community cooperation outside of an MMO, maybe ever. The missions you're going to be sent on can vary wildly, from priming and launching a nuclear warhead, population control, protecting civilians, drilling for oil, E710, and terrorism, with a good few more that I didn't mention, but there are also a smattering of side objectives you can complete as well, ranging from securing escape pod data and destroying local research facilities to shutting down dissident broadcast or loading up an artillery piece. These objectives are scattered across the map and are generally some distance from each other. Helldivers 2's maps are often big and expansive and are covered with fortifications and points of interest to explore. Most maps also have outposts scattered about which, in addition to spawning enemies, can also be equipped with weapons emplacements and strategic assets, like artillery and jammer towers. How you go about actually completing these objectives is up to you. While guns blazing is the default, stealth is, believe it or not, an actual option. But subtlety is for pussies, so I ignore it. Naturally, you dropping a fucking Moab in the local nursery or factory complex will antagonize the locals, and they will try, and depending on who you're fighting, mostly succeed in stopping you. As mentioned, there are two enemy forces, the Terminids on the eastern front and the Automaton collective mechanized murder communists on the western front. With the Terminids, it's a good old-fashioned bug hunt. They have the numbers and are generally melee-focused with some ranged and armoured units thrown in. But they also have deadlier units too, ranging from the girthy and rotund like the Bile Spitter to the quite fucking large like the Bile Titan. Some, like these little bastards, can fly, and others like the advanced hunter variant, the Stalker, can cloak, and some just say fuck it we ball and charge through the middle of your entire team. With the Automaton collective, however, I would describe the experience of fighting them as Vietnam-esque, getting shot at from every angle known to mankind, promptly hiding from a hail of gunfire in a dugout, only to be charged at by a gaggle of chainsaw-wielding frothers. They generally have a greater focus on ranged and armoured units, while usually having smaller overall numbers. But they are just as deadly, if not more deadly in my opinion, than the bugs, using a range of specialised units from jetpack troopers and devastators to scout walkers, hulks and, well, tanks, using them to great effect in royally fucking up your day. Difficulty also plays a factor. On lower difficulties like Trivial, you'll never see the larger enemies. On the harder difficulties, they're a dime a dozen. Outposts also get a glow up, so instead of a simple checkpoint you could take out with a well-placed airstrike, you're now facing the Maginot Line. But worry not, dear viewer, as you have the tools to make them dead. Primary amongst them, your very own Destroyer, which, in addition to being your mode of transport getting you from A to B, and as a hub with the shop, it also functions as a mobile weapons platform, and you're gonna need it. Helldivers 2 blends together the realistic and the batshit crazy really well, which gives the game so much personality. Movement, and especially gunplay, is tight and responsive. With movement, there's everything you'd expect: a walk, run, crouch, all standard fare. But also going prone and a dive. The gunplay is fantastic, with just the right amount of recoil for the weapon you're using to feel powerful, but not so much recoil that you have to worry about memorising a spray pattern down to the pixel. Gunplay has great feedback, with bullets blowing chunks off enemies and spraying blood all over the place, with the sound design only adding further to the meaty feel firing a weapon actually has. There's a lot of realism though with the gunplay. Ballistics are fully simulated, meaning the projectiles ricochet off armour and angled terrain. Weapons inflict locational damage and enemies all have weak spots. If you blow the legs off a walker, they fall over. Shoot a charger enough times in the ass, their ass explodes and they die. A bit of a tangent, but locational damage also affects the player. You get your legs broken, you don't regen stamina as quickly, and if both are broken, you can only limp. Get hit in the chest, you start bleeding out. Get your arms broken, you can't steady your aim. This brings us on to armour, of which there are 3 flavours. Light, which is the fastest, heavy, which is the best protection, medium, which is somewhere in between. Armours can have special modifiers ranging from making you more resistant to explosions or having your limbs injured, to putting down a scanning ping every time you mark something on the map, or even giving you the chance to cheat death. Okay, tangent over, back to weapons. The weapons you start with early on are the usual culprits: assault rifles, SMGs, shotguns, marksman's rifles, and a handful of grenades and sidearms, with more being unlocked as you progress. But you'll quickly find out that most of the standard weapons don't do jack shit against some of the larger, more powerful enemies you'll be up against. But a wise man once said, "No problem cannot be solved without the proper application of high explosives." Gandhi. Introducing stratagems, tipping the odds back in your favour. Stratagems are special commands you can issue to your destroyer through a cheeky bit of DDR, ranging from dropping advanced weaponry and fortifications to calling in enough heavy ordnance to kill God. As you level up, you'll be able to unlock and purchase more stratagems, but starting off they're relatively basic, you know, like dropping an orbital strike. Stratagems are split into a few different types: offensive, defensive, supply, and requisition. Offensive stratagems are your firepower, army of commies getting ideas above their station. Not anymore. See that Bile Titan over there? Neither do I. Offensive stratagems cover everything from orbital artillery to eagle bombing runs. There's all the assorted war crimes you could possibly want. There's napalm, cluster bombs, and chemical weapons. 380mm orbital bombardment for enemies or fortifications of the more spread out persuasion. An orbital railgun strike for those special moments where you want that very specific big fucker to stop breathing. The 500 kg, which will either kill everything in an 100-meter radius or do sweet FA, depending on its mood on that day. Defensive stratagems are equally varied. Want turrets against infantry or armour. You got it. Want a drone buddy to follow you around helping with crowd control? You got it. Want a shield bubble, HMG emplacement, mortar or minefield for when you just gotta hold the line? You got it. Supply stratagems range from heavy weapons to advanced equipment. Everything from LMGs, grenade launchers, flamethrowers and railguns to jetpacks and personal shields is here. There are some weapons which require 2 people to operate at maximum efficiency, like the recoilless rifle, autocannon or the spear. But my personal favourite is the Patriot. This walking war crime is packing a rotary cannon and a missile launcher for when your foes are many, and your time is short. And finally, requisition stratagems, which include resupply pods, objective essential stratagems, and reinforcements, which you're gonna need. You choose both your weapons and stratagems before dropping in, and can also equip a boost, which provide everything from full ammo on a drop to increased stamina regeneration or the ability to resist injury. Helldivers 2 is a co-op game, and a cross-platform one at that. So working together and coordinating is probably your most powerful asset. While you can just say fuck it and charge in, most of the time that's a horrendous idea. Everyone has stratagems, everyone is using stratagems, always, and without communication you're gonna end up getting plastered by one of them. You see, Helldivers 2 puts the danger in danger close. Friendly fire's on at all times, and you'll have to make provision for the fact that half of your casualties are gonna be caused by your own side. Observe as one of my grenades bounces off a Brood Commander's armor, exploding and subsequently ragdolling little Jimmy, sending the airstrike beacon he had in his hand into the middle of our entire squad, promptly ending our lives. But let's assume you survive the bugs, survive the bots, and with a minimum of friendly fire incidents, you complete your objectives, and overachiever that you are, you even get your secondary objectives. Well, now you have to extract, which, depending on the difficulty, can range from a leisurely stroll to a lone wolf style final stand. A mission which started out simple can end up being pretty brutal, and depending on where you're fighting, planets can have environmental effects which can either be positive or negative, depending on the planet, which you'll have to deal with throughout the mission. Some planets are freezing, and so weapons with heat sinks, like lasers, don't heat up as quickly as normal. On a desert world, they heat up more quickly, and your character's stamina regenerates slower. Certain planets have more testing modifiers, like this absolute gem, which randomizes which stratagem you call in. Other planets can have, how should we say, unseasonable weather, such as meteor bombardments and fire tornadoes. It's not the only thing that you have to worry about though. Time is also a factor here. The longer it takes for you to finish and extract, the more enemies you'll have to deal with, and if the time runs out, your destroyer pieces out, leaving you with no stratagems and no reinforcements. Just to clarify, reinforcements function as respawns and are shared by the entire squad. Die and you eat into those reinforcements. Run out of time and you have none, so don't die. Assuming you survive that and do extract, depending on which objectives and side objectives which were completed or not completed, as well as how many of the squad extract, you get a star rating and a credit reward, as well as war bonds and XP. There are also special resources you can collect when you're on the surface: samples, rare samples, super samples, and super credits. Credits are used for buying stratagems if you've reached the level requirement to unlock them. War bonds are used for unlocking weapons, boosts, and of course drip in the battle passes. Yes, plural. Samples are used for upgrading your destroyer, which in turn upgrades your different types of stratagems, adding more barrages to orbital bombardments, giving an extra use to the eagle bombing and strafing runs, that sort of thing. And super credits, which are premium currency used in the in-game store, which you can buy with real money. Helldivers 2 ships with 2 battle passes, a standard available to everyone, and a premium pass bought with super credits. Getting through the battle pass can be a bit grindy, and depending on where you're sat in the line, this is either going to be a positive or a negative, so your mileage may vary. My advice, don't be spending real money on super credits. They're really easy to acquire, completely legit, just through playing the game. But to sum up my thoughts on the gameplay, it's fantastic, it's fun, it's unique, and it's a real joy to learn and to play. And even though it's quite simple on the surface, it has legs, it's replayable as hell, and with more being added to it consistently, I can see it staying fun for a long time to come yet. Helldivers 2 is a bit of an anomaly. You would expect that a game with this much going on at all times would run like liquid ass, but I am pleased to report that for me at least it ran like a dream, even more impressive considering how good this game looks. Helldivers looks good. damn good. And not just graphically, this game has a great visual style, taking bits and pieces from its influences and combining them together while adding its own flair. And it has some gorgeous environments too, like god damn some of these planets are pretty. The sound is similarly fantastic, with soundwork adding a great deal to what makes this game so satisfying to actually play. From the weapons to the stratagems, everything sounds meaty. The OST is great too, with it nailing the absolutely fucking bonkers scale of some of these engagements you'll be knee deep in. So basically, it looks good, it sounds good, and it actually runs well. So done deal, right? Not quite. At launch, the game suffered from severe server instability and capacity issues. There were some days where you literally could not get into the game. This has since been fixed, but the game still has its quirks, especially after updates. Random crashes, problems with matchmaking, not being able to join your friends, and vice versa. But these issues have slowly but surely been getting cleaned up, so it's not a deal breaker, just something to know about. What could be a deal breaker though is the anti-cheat. Folks on console, this isn't relevant to you, so you can skip along on to the conclusion. But PC folks, this might be of interest. I'll keep it brief because I'm not an expert. But essentially it boils down to a few key issues. First off, not only is it complete overkill for the game it's attached to, with it being a PvE game, it's just kind of bad at its job. It hasn't stopped people from cheating, people are doing it anyway. Second is its system privileges, and Protect is a rootkit anti-cheat, which means it has system privileges above administrator level, which translated back into English means it has full access to your PC, meaning it can prioritize programs, uninstall legitimate files, and throttle performance. The final issue is a result of the second issue, that being that as a rootkit, if somebody was ever to crack and Protect, everyone with it installed would also be at risk from the hackermans themselves. I have to add that the risk of any of this actually happening is pretty remote, but it's not non-existent. So you really do need to factor in whether or not you're personally willing to take the risk. I was in order to review and play the game, and I haven't personally encountered any issues myself, but that may not be the case for you. Simply put, if the risk concerns you, consider carefully, or, if you have the option, just buy it for PlayStation. Now you don't need to worry about it anymore. Helldivers 2 is a good time. It's fun, it's engaging, and it's batshit crazy. This game is a real treat, with great co-op and a genuinely novel concept. It's an easy recommend for folks on console. Have fun. But on PC, with the anti-cheat factoring in, it isn't quite so cut and dry. If anything I've mentioned concerned you, it's probably something you should consider going in. That said, most popular multiplayer games have some form of anti-cheat. Fuck, even Elden Ring has an anti-cheat. You'll probably be fine. As I said, the risk is remote. Some folks get a bit twitchy when you mention anti-cheat, and I can understand why. And I felt at least that I needed to make you lot aware of it and the possible risks that come with it. And hopefully not made a complete dick of myself in the process. If, even after the anti-cheat, you're like, I need it! Everything I said previously is still true. This game is fantastic to play. A dream game for some people like myself. A real one of a kind, which I will be playing for quite some time to come yet. Before I phase out of existence for another month, I would like to take the time to thank everyone for the love and support on my first video. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. I expected to get tore to pieces, but everyone has been so nice and constructive, and it really does mean a lot. I'll not keep you any longer though. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, like, subscribe, leave a comment, all that jazz. And of course, take care and cheerio.